Much Ado About Nothing is the original rom-com that has love, manipulation, splashing around in fountains. It's great. Welcome to Lit History, where I talk about the history of the world through the lens of literature, and you're forced to sit here and listen to me yap about it. With the time that you have so graciously given me, and in honor of Valentine's Day, I wanted to make a video about my favorite Shakespearean couple, Benedict and Beatrice. So strap in, grab some candied hearts, let's go. And forgive my appearance for the rest of the video, I look as dead as Hero is supposed to be. Much Ado About Nothing is like the OG rom-com that sets up the trope of the no-nonsense woman named Beatrice, who has wit, has beauty, and the determination that she doesn't need a man. The story sets out with Beatrice, our main leading lady, talking with Hero, who's this girl who is the picture of virtue and chastity, and she sounds really fun in bed. They are talking with Leonardo, who is Beatrice's uncle, Hero's father. They're discussing how the king, Don Pedro, is coming with some of his entourage to stay there for a minute, and Leonardo is so excited and welcomes them. Enter Don Pedro and his entourage. There's the Florentine Claudio, who has gained quite a bit of esteem after the recent war. There's Don John, who we will now refer to as Don Worm for the rest of this narrative. And he is the brother of the king, but an illegitimate brother, and he's very bitter. The reason we're calling him Don Worm comes from our leading man Benedict's line. We'll get there. But Benedict, let's come back to him. He wants to be a bachelor, he's manly, and he's like, I don't want a wife, of course. So we know where this is going with Beatrice and Benedict. Beatrice and Benedict are also known to kind of have a little bit of a repertoire. They're kind of frenemies, although they've never met. When Benedict first gets there, they have a little banter, and it's really witty and honestly holds up to today's standards. But they talk about how they hate each other, but how neither one wants to get married, and the audience is just like, kiss already. Meanwhile, while this is going on, Claudio, who I like to refer to as Bland 1, and Hero, who I like to refer to as Bland 2, I guess see each other. It doesn't really say if they even catch eye contact or whatever, but Claudio's like, I'm in love. I think she's so hot. I want to marry her this instant. Enter the prince. He says, oh my god, I love this couple. I totally approve of Hero. And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna woo Hero for you, and then you can go and then marry her. Why would the prince woo Hero for Claudio? Probably because he's the coolest man in the land, but also he's dressing up as Claudio to woo her, so. Next scene, Don Worm and his associate Borachio hear that the prince is putting together Claudio and Hero. And since the prince is setting this up and Don Worm is just bitter, like that's his personality trait, he's like, no, I'm gonna break them up. I'm gonna break them up. And now we have my dream event, a masquerade ball. So remember, the prince is disguised as Claudio. Claudio and Benedict are just disguised as random people of the court. Beatrice is at the food table, you know, just hanging out, and Benedict comes up to her in disguise, goes up to Beatrice, and she starts kind of shit-talking him, which, why was she even thinking about him at this time? Beatrice? But she's like, nah, I hate him, he's the worst, ew, I would never even want to be near him. And so Benedict's just like, ugh, she's so rude. And the audience is like, just kiss already. Meanwhile, Claudio is watching on as the prince woos Hero and is like, this is seeming like it's going really good. But Don Worm then of course comes up and says that he thinks the prince is actually wooing Hero for himself. So Claudio gets very suspicious and very angry and kind of storms out of the party. The prince goes to Claudio afterwards, and Claudio tells him he's mad at him. The prince clears up the situation. They talk to Leonardo. Claudio's like, now that I know that she was wooed in my name, I want to get married immediately, because it worked out so well for Romeo and Juliet. And Leonardo responds saying he needs at least a week to plan, and the prince has an idea of what to do in the meantime. They're going to trick Beatrice and Benedict into liking each other by having Benedict overhear a conversation where they say that Beatrice is so in love with him, and by having Beatrice overhear a conversation that Benedict is so in love with her. So Don Worm and his henchmen are working on a plan to destroy the marriage that the prince set up. A relevant piece of background information is Hero's lady maid Margaret has been sleeping with Borachio. And Borachio is like, okay, I'll go to Margaret, make her pretend that she's Hero while we're kind of talking dirty to each other outside of Hero's window. Why are you yelling that out of a window? I don't know. And Don Worm will make sure that the prince and Claudio and etc. all overhear this, so they're like, Hero is a fallen woman, and they destroy the marriage. He never really mentions how this will affect Hero, which is negative. It impacts her very negatively. Meanwhile, Benedict is overhearing a conversation between Leonardo, Claudio, and Don Pedro, where they're like, oh, Beatrice is just so in love with Benedict, and she's so sad and so heartbroken, and Benedict is just kind of an asshole for putting her in this position because of course he'd never love her. And he's like, I guess I love Beatrice now? And then Beatrice overhears a conversation between Hero and her lady's maid and hears that Benedict is so sick with love over her and he's so miserable and how evil of a woman she must be to do that to him. And of course Beatrice is like, I guess I love Benedict now. And the audience is like, oh, just kiss already. But it is kind of cute that the overhearing scene with Beatrice and Benedict, both of them kind of seem to realize how well suited the other is for them in the scene. And it feels like they genuinely are falling in love with them. Don Pedro and Claudio kind of make fun of Benedict a little bit for shaving his beard and make fun of him especially for saying that he would never leave the bachelor life behind, and now he's gone and shaved his beard and everything. And then Don Worm enters and tells Claudio not to get married because Hero is a loose lady. Claudio says he doesn't believe him at first, and Don Worm says, I can prove it to you, just come outside of Hero's bedroom with me and you'll hear for yourself. And they hear the salacious conversation between Margaret and Borachio, with Margaret calling herself Hero, and they think it is Hero in there who's been having a little affair with a man, a little ménage à trois, if you will. After his little rendezvous with Margaret, Borachio goes to see his son Conrad, and it's like, I got so much money today, secured the bag. And Borachio tells Conrad that he got so much money from Don Worm because he did this little trick to trick Claudio and the prince into believing that Hero was a fallen lady. However, the Night's Watch is there, just standing over him, being like, and the Night's Watch arrest Borachio and his son immediately. The next day, Hero is preparing for her wedding, and also the first time she has ever made a conscious decision this entire play is getting to choose what wedding gown she wears. Her engagement to Claudio was arranged entirely by Leonardo and the prince, and she never really had a say in it. I mean, she seems to love him a lot, but there's definitely that contrast of how Hero and Claudio get together without speaking and just kind of with a business arrangement type vibe, and Beatrice and Benedict having really witty and flirty conversations and slowly falling in love with each other. But while Hero's preparing for the wedding, they tease Beatrice a little bit about being in love with Benedict, etc., etc. We've seen this scene before. As Beatrice is walking to the church where she's going to get married, the Night's Watch stop Leonardo and say they have really important stuff to tell him, but they're comic relief, so they kind of are roundabout about it and go wherever and are rambling. And so Leonardo's like, I gotta go, my daughter's about to get married, sorry guys, bye. And misses their expose of the plot that's going on and how they already arrested Borachio and Conrad. So we're at the wedding now, and Claudio bursts in saying that Hero is unfaithful and evil, etc. And this is actually the first time they've spoken. But Don Pedro, the prince, and Don Worm back him up, so everyone believes it. Hero faints in shock, and Claudio storms out, and Leonardo is like, my whore of a daughter. If anyone's watched The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and know the barbecue scene that I'm talking about, it's like virtually that. But the friar cuts in and says, no, I believe her. Back up there, man. I am the authority here because I am a church leader. And says that he believes that Hero's innocent, which after some convincing, Leonardo agrees with and is like, oh, we need to get revenge against those awful princes and Claudio and whatever. The friar says, we're going to get our revenge, but we're going to do it in a clever way. And we're going to tell everyone that when Hero fainted of shock, she died. And it will convince Claudio of his love for her, and he'll feel really guilty. Which, of course, guilt is comparable to the destruction of Hero's entire life. Later, Beatrice and Benedict are talking, and they finally admit that they love each other, and it's just really cute, because it's not necessarily romantic, it's just like, well, fine, I love you, and now this is what I'm gonna say. And the audience is like, aw, kiss already! But Beatrice says if Benedict really loves her, he'll go challenge Claudio to a duel, because he insulted the honor of her cousin. And at first, Benedict says no, he won't do it, and then Beatrice is like, well, fine, then I'm leaving. And Benedict is like, no, wait, okay. and reluctantly agrees to have a duel with his best friend. So later, Don Pedro and Claudio are just kind of hanging out, and Leonardo comes up to them and tells them that they killed his daughter and that they're horrible people and they should feel so guilty. Before they have a chance to really respond, Benedict enters and challenges Claudio to a duel. Before Claudio can really respond to that statement, the Night's Watch come in and show him the prisoners of Barocchio and Conrad and explain what's going on and everything that happened. And Barocchio honestly feels really, really guilty, and he said, I was looking for money, but I didn't mean to kill an innocent woman, and for that, he tells them everything about Don Worm. They also find out that Don Worm has now escaped to the countryside. Claudio, upon realizing the truth of the situation, laments Hero's death and begs Leonardo for his forgiveness, saying he'll do anything, he feels horrible. And Leonardo says, there is in fact something you can do. I have a niece and she needs to be married, not Beatrice though. And Claudio says, yes, whoever it is, I will do it. Elsewhere, Beatrice and Benedict are flirting it up a little bit, as one does, and Hero's lady maid enters and says that Hero's innocence has been proved and Claudio's gonna marry Leonardo's niece. So Beatrice wants to go here, asks Benedict if he will, and this is probably my favorite line of the play. Benedict says, I will live in thy heart, die in thy lap, and be buried in thy eyes. And moreover, I will go with thee to thy uncle's. This is the level of extraness that I need in love. Like, I don't need you to tell me that you're gonna go with me, I need you to tell me that you will go to the ends of the earth. So sure, you'll head along to the grocery store. Claudio and Don Pedro go to Leonardo's house again for the second wedding, and the bride is veiled, but like with a very thick veil, and he has to see her, and Leonardo's like, no, not till after the wedding. It's for good luck. And after they're married, Claudio lifts the veil, sees its hero, is rejoiced, and shocker here, the archetypal male and the archetypal female end up married. But they're not the only ones. Beatrice and Benedict say, well, why we're here, we'll get married as well, but not because we like each other or anything, just because we feel bad for the other person. And the audience is like, just kiss already. But despite their excuse, Hero and Claudio pull out little sheets of paper that are poems written by Benedict and by Beatrice separately, and it's little shitty love poems about the other one. They get married, Claudio is forgiven, and the play ends in a celebratory dance. The play Much Ado About Nothing also reflects the modernity that Shakespeare likes to put into his plays. And the modernity is reflecting the change from the medieval period into his modern period. And it's the modernity that will affect a society that will eventually collapse in on itself in the Victorian period till it has to rearrange itself entirely. We see this modernity in the juxtaposition of Claudio and Hero's love, which is a very archaic form of love, and Beatrice and Benedict's love, which is more reliant on personal interactions and a growing affection for each other. The character of Beatrice has also been said to reflect and be constructed of proto-feminist ideals, and that's really cool of Shakespeare to put in, and my personal opinion is it comes from his respect of Queen Elizabeth I. There's also another modernity element in A King's Failings with Don Pedro getting tricked by Don Worm. Shakespeare saying kings can be wrong is also very reflective of the importance of agency over authority, and this is mostly due to the rising merchant class in this society, where now it wasn't just the aristocrats who had fabulous amounts of wealth and had importance in society. Because money rules the world. I love Shakespeare, he's so petty.